Welcome to the Learning Support video on designing a resistance training program. Within this video, we'll discuss the manner in which we can assist anyone from a student in high school to a friend, college student, or anyone who's interested in improving their personal health and physical fitness to do just that through resistance training. As you've probably noticed, instead of one long extended video, this video has been segmented. It's my hope that providing this video in segments that you'll likely focus in on the things or content that you may want to review the most. So let's start by looking at some of the benefits associated with resistance training. The answer is there's really countless benefits associated with engaging in a resistance training program. However, let's put our focus today on the physiological benefits. In other words, what things take place or change in our bodies when we engage in a resistance training program. Physiologically, we'll see an increase in our strength, our endurance, our ability to store greater amounts of protein, and we'll often see a decrease in our body fat percentage, but an increase in our fat-free mass. So let's start by reviewing some principles as it relates to strength training. On the screen you can see the 5 principles that are listed here. First we have specificity, overload, variation, progression, and sequencing. So let's start with specificity. Specificity is all about instructing someone to exercise or train in a certain way so that he or she can experience a specific result or outcome. For example, if we're working with a volleyball player, we probably want to focus on helping him or her develop strength and power for the lower extremity a little bit more than we would want them to work on the upper extremity. This isn't to say that strength training for the upper extremity is unimportant, and simply because a lot of the movement patterns in volleyball include running, cutting, and jumping. So doing so, focusing on more of the lower extremity exercises, helps us to better prepare the athlete for his or her designated sport. In other words, the more similar our resistance training is to the movement patterns required in a given sport, the better chance we have for an athlete to transfer those skills or the results from their training program. The second principle is overload. The principle of overload refers to stress, and you're probably familiar with the 2 types of stress that exist. The first type is what we call eustress. This is the good type of stress. And the second is called distress, of course, the negative type of stress. So what we'll look at here is how eustress is needed for our physical bodies. In other words, when we're engaged in physical activity, we're applying a type of eustress, a good type of stress, which helps to make us stronger and helps to make us more physically fit. In other words, we must stress our bodies in order to see any gains or improvement in our physical fitness. But here's the catch. In order to see meaningful results, or in order to benefit from a sound exercise program, we must expose ourselves and or others to a stress that is greater than what they're used to or greater than what we're used to. So we do this practically by modifying things such as the amount of weight being lifted, the number of repetitions for an exercise, modifying the number of days we exercise per week, and or modifying the amount of rest in between each exercise set. The third principle that we'll investigate is variation. This third principle speaks to the fact that we must simply and practically switch things up from time to time. In other words, if we kept engaging in the same exercise routines over and over, lifting the same amount of weight, or maintaining a set number of sets and reps, we'd eventually experience something that we call overtraining or burnout. Overtraining, in a nutshell, can lead to injury, cause someone to plateau, or actually see setbacks in their strength or performance, due primarily to muscle fatigue. Next is the principle of progression. This principle simply states that regardless of how effective a training program is, it should not continue indefinitely without modification. We'll explore this concept more in the remaining sequences of this video. Last but certainly not least, we must investigate the principle of sequencing. Sequencing applies to how we order, or how we, for lack of a better term, sequence the exercises that we're implementing in a given session. As you may already know, there's a reason for this. It helps to prevent fatiguing muscles and or to help us maximize the benefits of a given exercise program. Again, we'll look at more of this in the later segments of this video. So now that we have an idea about the principles involved in resistance training, let's get an overview of the step-by-step process that we would actually use to design a resistance training program. First, we need to start with an initial consultation and fitness evaluation. Now, what this entails will be different depending on the setting that you work in. For example, the initial consultation and fitness evaluation could be an athletic physical. It could be an evaluation of physical fitness, completing a PAR-Q and U form. It could be a medical physical exam. It could include FMS testing, which is the functional movement screen. In other words, it will include what's normal or expected of you in your unique setting. Second, we need to determine how often throughout the week one should or will engage in resistance training. Third, we need to determine the types of exercises that should be performed. Will it be utilizing body weight? Will it use free weights? Or will it use machines? Your selection is important, as an individual's training goal will determine which options you choose. However, your selection will be primarily based on what's available to you. Coupled with exercise selection is order. We'll discuss in another segment the importance of strategically ordering the succession of exercises. Fourthly, we have to give consideration to training load. In other words, how much weight will we ask someone to push or pull? Please know that there are multiple methods by which we can determine how much weight should be lifted. For our purpose, we're going to discuss what's called the 1 rep max test. This is considered to be the gold standard, and we'll discuss this in one of the following segments. Fifthly and finally, we'll briefly discuss training variation and progression. These are the components that will help us to prevent overtraining and ensure that we provide methods that assist in bettering those who complete our designed program. Thank you for watching this first segment. The next segment will help us to review Step 1 to give us an understanding of the initial consultation and fitness evaluation.